The stadium was alive with cheers, laughter, and the rhythmic splash of water. Jessica Radcliffe stood poolside, her wetsuit glistening under the lights, her eyes locked on the enormous black and white shadow beneath the surface. For 20 minutes, it was pure harmony, every jump, every spin, every wave perfectly timed. And then, something changed. A sudden dive, a powerful lunge, teeth flashed in the water. In seconds, the blue turned to red. Screams erupted, trainers ran, and cameras shook as bystanders tried to understand what they were seeing. By the time rescue divers reached Jessica, the crowd already knew. It was too late. This is the story of Jessica Radcliffe, the girl who grew up loving the ocean, the orca she believed she could trust, and the moment when that trust was shattered forever. Jessica's journey didn't start in the spotlight of a marine park. Instead, it started at a windy coastline where the air reeked of salt and storms. Jessica is the daughter of a marine biologist and grew up with the ocean as her classroom. Her father's research boat gave her the opportunity to watch as dolphins raced alongside the hull. Almost every child's hobby involved collecting toys, but Jessica's hobby stood out. She was collecting tide charts, marine life facts, and seashells. And as if this was not impressive enough, she was able to differentiate between whales using the shape of their spouts. At the young age of 10 years old, she developed the ability to know if a dolphin was stressed or an orca was merely playing. This ability is not just education, but is intuition, and Jessica does not just love marine animals, but bonds with them unlike most people. After earning a degree in marine biology, Jessica joined Ocean Haven Marine Park at the age of 19. This opportunity not only opened a door for her to start her career in marine biology, but it would also lead her towards her final day. There, she encountered Nyx, the park's largest, oldest, and most infamous orca. At 22 feet long and over 10,000 pounds, he was covered in scars from both his turbulent life in the wild and the years spent in captivity. Nyx, as awe-inspiring as he was unpredictable, made whispers about his bad days. Jessica, unlike many, felt drawn towards him. As time passed, Nyx and Jessica began to form a bond. Their performances became the park's crown jewel, with Jessica swimming alongside Nyx as he breached into the air, showcasing superb synchronicity. Cheering audiences soon turned into people traveling miles to watch the pair. But over time, Nyx's behavior shifted. He began refusing food. Sometimes he would float for hours, ignoring Jessica's commands. On certain nights, he would slam his massive body into the walls of his tank, sending shockwaves through the water. The veterinarians blamed stress, hormones, or boredom. Jessica saw something different, something deeper. The sudden changes in mood, the unpredictable bursts of aggression followed by long periods of calm. They reminded her of her own mother's bipolar disorder. She began to believe Nyx wasn't just restless, he was mentally and emotionally breaking down. But there's no therapy for a 6-ton predator in captivity. Eventually, park management decided Nyx would be retired to a quieter facility. It was a polite way of saying he'd be kept out of sight indefinitely. Jessica pleaded for one last show, just her and Nyx, no backup trainers. Management agreed. On the night of the performance, the stadium was sold out. Families filled the bleachers, children leaning over the rails. Jessica's parents sat proudly in the front row. From the moment the music began, Nyx was perfect, hitting every cue, every trick, every splash exactly as rehearsed. Jessica's confidence soared. Then came the finale. Jessica climbed onto Nyx's back as he glided across the water. She waved to the cheering audience, smiling, until Nyx suddenly dove, throwing her into the pool. Before she could react, Nyx spun and clamped his jaws around her, middle part of the body. At first, the crowd thought it was part of the act, until Jessica screamed. The sound cut through the music. Blood spread through the water like red smoke. Panic suddenly became visible, shot matter up and out. Trainers shouted commands, slapping the water, tossing ropes and fish to distract Nyx. He didn't respond. Slowly, in a carefully planned way, He dragged Jessica into the deepest part of the tank. The struggle lasted minutes, but it felt like hours. By the time divers reached her, it was over. Her ribs were shattered. Her lungs collapsed. The girl who once dreamed of saving ocean life had been killed by the creature she loved most. It wasn't just a sudden, unplanned bad event crash in a pool. It was the crash of two worlds, one wild, one man-made, and the moment they tore each other apart. Jessica's life had been built on trust, but trust means nothing to a creature that has spent years circling the same walls, staring through glass at a freedom it can never touch. In Nix's eyes, that night wasn't a show. It was a sudden, explosive shooting up and out of matter, of gut feeling, frustration, and something darker that no human could fully understand. And once that gut feeling surfaced, there was no stopping it. Not for love, not for training, not even for Jessica. The park labeled it a tragic accident. But behind closed doors, the truth was darker. Nix had attacked before. Years earlier, a man had broken into the park after hours and entered his tank. The next morning, his body was found, mangled, with bite marks identical to Jessica's injuries. Marine psychologists later studied Nix's behavior and came to a chilling conclusion. He wasn't insane. He was highly intelligent but deeply depressed. In the wild, orcas travel up to 100 miles a day. In captivity, Nix swam in circles in a space 1,000 times smaller than his natural range. Some in the crowd left that night believing they had witnessed a freak accident. Others, especially those who knew Nix's past, saw something far more deliberate. To them, it was as if years of confinement, boredom, and bottled instinct had boiled over in a single, irreversible moment. And the truth, whether whispered in back rooms or shouted by activists, was that this was not the first time, and without change, it would not be the last. In the wake of Jessica's death, Ocean Haven closed its doors. Nix was relocated to a private sanctuary, his exact location kept secret. Locals claim that on quiet nights, you can still hear his haunting calls echoing over the water. Was Jessica's death the result of a tragic mistake, or was it the cost of keeping wild animals in captivity? Some believe love can tame anything. Others know some spirits are too wild to cage. Jessica Radcliffe lived her life believing that the ocean had a soul, one that could be understood, maybe even befriended. She dedicated her heart to an animal that inspired awe, joy, and fear. But on that final night, the same sea that had given her life's purpose took it away in an instant. Nix remains far from the crowds now, his future uncertain. Some see him as a killer, others as a victim of a world that tried to shrink the ocean into a concrete tank. And maybe both can be true. Jessica's story is more than a headline. It's a warning about the thin line between wonder and danger, trust and instinct. We can admire the ocean, we can study it, but we can never truly tame it. She knew that. She respected it. And in the end, it claimed her. Some waves are meant to be ridden, others are meant to be left alone. If Jessica's story moved you, don't let it end here. Share this video, support marine conservation, and remember, every tank holds more than water. It holds a life and a choice about how we treat it.